say? Internet, Fern, the internet, they live in there. Yeah, we can't see them, but they can see us, so just behave, okay? Can you just behave for me? Doing really well, normally you'd bite my face. What's up everyone, my name is Chris and this is Fast Fridays. Today I'm going to give you 5 spots you should be checking for gold on any creek or river. And just to clarify, this is not spots that you would traditionally hear like inside bends or behind obstructions. I'm going to give you legitimate spots that I check every single time I go out when I see them, because they almost always hold some gold and sometimes they pay out huge. Because most of the time, people don't check them. The first deposit is an edge deposit. There is a 1 and a 2. Edge deposit number 1 is pretty simple. That is where the banks of your creek erode. So a basic creek or riverbed will probably have some form of U-shape in it. As the fast water goes down there, it will undercut some of these banks. As it undercuts these banks here, these banks tend to slump. These parts collapse down on top of the area that was eroded. The thing about erosion is, when the fast water takes away all the big rocks, it usually leaves behind the gold in a concentrated line right on this edge. So by removing the dirt that has fallen in on top of the cavity, you can usually access a pay layer of concentrated gravel, and this spot is really good when the dirt around it is quite low grade. If you're getting 1 or 2 specks in every single pan what you do from this dirt, because all of this dirt was eroded and concentrated down much like a sluice box, this could be going 10, 20, 30, 50 or 100 specks per pan. Edge deposit number 2 is where these banks might be a little more gently sloping with grasses and trees growing on their banks. What you'll find where grasses and trees are growing is that this erosion can't happen to the same extent. What you'll get is a mucky sort of slop sitting on the edge of the water and the dry land. And that mucky slop often has a lot of gold in it, because you get little feeder roots coming off into the stream and snagging those gold particles out of the water. It never usually gets checked by most prospectors because it does look like mud and often has very little rock in it. I've had more luck with these deposits, but these definitely shouldn't be overlooked, especially if you've got bedrock near the surface. Old sluice runs. This one is primarily for areas that had some hydraulic working. What you're going to see in hydraulic working, and this is going to be a top-down view, so if we had a drone looking from above down, is you're going to find water races. And the water races are channels or ditches that run along the edge of workings. And these workings will be big pits. This might be 20 foot high, and this is where they would have water cannoned it. So they would have had a water cannon or a monitor somewhere out here spraying the dirt. As they sprayed this dirt, it eroded and it will be funneled through sluice boxes. So you would have channels that would take this dirt into a main sluice run, and that goes out to the creek. So we've got hydraulic pressure washing dirt and silt into these channels that they would have blasted or dug, and then that dirt goes down to their main sluice boxes on the creek. If they weren't using monitors, they would have been using the water races themselves. As water came down these channels, they would have busted a hole in the bank and allowed that water to run out of it, eroding that soil and doing the same process, running it through sluice boxes down to their main sluice runs. These are the channels you want to be looking for. So you're down in the gravel pits, you're going to have a 20-foot wall or 10-foot wall or however high it is of dirt left above you. You're going to be down in that main channel, and these often have gold that's left over, but you're not going to find a lot of gravel in them. It's primarily going to be mud and clay and silt, and you usually won't get any heavy indicators as well. You've got to try and find the ones that were made out of bedrock and not earth. The ones that were made out of bedrock usually hold more gold. Most of my nuggets have been in the fast water. Most gold prospectors would know about finding gold on the inside bend. The inside bend is where you're going to find the most friction for gold to travel through, and therefore it tends to collect there. So this here is an inside bend. That would be our outside bend. Our inside bends, you want to check on the banks for gold deposits. You want to check on the edges for gold deposits, and just a little bit further out into the stream. This is well common knowledge, but most of my nuggets have been found on the opposite side, and that's simply because of momentum and friction. Small gold tends to turn corners, and when it turns corners, it ends up going over the top of your inside bend. But big nuggets don't like turning corners. Your big hunker of gold, it just literally wants to go straight. It's like taking a semi-trailer around an F1 course. It's not going to do so well. So whilst it's been dragged along by that fast water, it doesn't take as much energy to drop a large piece of gold out of the current as it does for the small fine stuff. And so just as that fast water starts slowing down just before those inside bends, you'll usually find a deposit of large rocks with very little gravel on there and your most erosion on your bedrock. This is where those like to hide, because it takes a lot less velocity drop off in the water for those nuggets to fall out. The only problem is there's far fewer of these than there is fine gold in the world, and that means that working these areas is usually hit and miss. If you are going to find a big piece of gold, it's going to be in this area, but you're more likely to find a heap of fine gold on those inside bends. And the last place, sidewalls. When working in old mining areas, often you'll see in the banks of the creek, and this is a side view, so this is our water down here, and we're looking at the bank from the side, you're going to see layers. Up the top, you might see just a dirt layer. It's just got little bits of dirt, grass, maybe a couple little bits of rock. Nothing really interesting in it. And then you might see, and this will change depending on where you're working and what you're looking at, then you might see a layer that's all sort of over the place, and the rock in it is sporadically spread out. It's random. There's a little bit of big rock, there's a little bit of small rock, there's debris, there's even some cavities where there isn't even any dirt or silt in it. This is a flood layer. So because the rocks have been laid in there and they're all over the shop, it's unlikely that water was flowing over them for any length of time. Then you might get another layer of clay. So this might just be solid clay, and often when you're working in gold areas, this is from old timers sluice boxes or something similar. These can be worth sampling sometimes. Often I don't find too much gold in this sort of layer. Now what you're really looking for is a thing called imbricated rock. Imbricated rock is a mixture of rock, all different sizes. Now it doesn't matter about the color, and it doesn't matter about the shape or the type of rock that's in it, as much as it matters about the direction of the rock. Imbricated rock is the exact opposite of this rock up here. Imbricated rock is all laying flat and facing one direction. Usually will have the front or the back edge tilted up or down, and this gives you a direction of flow. So the back end being down, the opposite end is the way that the water was flowing. It was pushing on this rock down and pushing it along the stream. This indicates that the water flowed over that section of ground for a considerable period of time. Just like in your cross section of your creek that you're currently standing in, normally the top gravels won't have very much in it. But if this layer down here is in contact with, say, a clay layer like this, or a bedrock layer, it's definitely worth sampling along that bottom section. Now you are relying on the fact that you might have been on an inside bend or behind an obstruction or something like that for this to hold gold. But these old creek channels, not sluice channels, Chris, these old creek channels offer you a good opportunity to sample the sidewall when you find them. And you will find gold if it's imbricated and you're in the right low pressure, high friction zones. So there you have it, 5 simple places that you can check for gold next time you go out. There's no guarantee that the gold will be there, and that's simply because that's prospecting. It depends on what was left in the ground when the water subsided. But by checking them, you can ensure that you're not walking away from easy to get gold that most other people will simply walk over. And yes, you've seen me check these sort of spots almost every single video on Vo-Gus prospecting. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you did enjoy it. Remember to check the description below for interesting links. And until next time, give your dog a scratch behind the ears for me. Peace. and I'm out.